Standing by.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Tokusatsu Now, the brand new podcast designed to help get new viewers into the world of Tokusatsu. My name is Tom Caswell, and I am joined by some illustrious other hosts. Firstly, we have Eric Francisco. How you doing, Eric?
I'm doing great, Tom. Thanks for having me.
It's good to be with you. Longtime friends. We're going to be jumping into all of that because it kind of is centered around everything we're going to discuss. We're also joined by Asa Green. Asa, how are you?
Hello. I'm here.
And finally, last but not least, we have Michael Williams. Michael, how are you doing?
Hello, folks. Welcome to Tokusatsu Now. Tokusatsu Now.
Michael, I know online you go by MH. Do you have a preference?
Just Mike. MH, I started during writing because it sounded austere and cool, like an old white guy who's been writing forever.
I love that.
But in the real world, I just do Mike.
Okay, Mike. Good. It was really funny because we follow each other on Blue Sky, and I saw MH, and I was like, "Is it Mike? Is it Mark?" And I had to do some internet sleuthing to remember. It had been so long.
Yeah, it also doesn't help that like Mike Williams is like the next level down from John Smith. So like, there's a lot of Mike Williams. There's like a football star. There's a construction company. So I just needed some way to like put me over.
Gotcha. Well, hopefully this podcast ultimately all helps with our SEO.
Yes.
That's the dream. So if you are listening, please consider following, subscribing, whatever they call it, on whatever platform you're on. Click that button, and we can help Mike get placed higher in Google search than Mike Williams Construction. Okay, so that's and also to give some additional context, I currently work at GameSpot. I've been in digital media for about a decade now. I work as a video producer. Eric, where are you currently? What are you doing?
What am I doing? I'm chilling out with my homies right now. No, I'm currently a writer at Esquire magazine. I'm an associate entertainment editor. I cover movies and TV, all the fun stuff that we distract ourselves. To me, that's work. Distraction is work, is how I kind of put it. But I've also been like you, I've been in digital media for approximately 10 years now. Mm-hmm. I've written for outlets like Inverse, Rolling Stone, Vulture, Hollywood Reporter, IGN, and more. And we'll get into it soon, but I'm also obviously a big-time lover of Tokusatsu and a lot of different Tokusatsu media. And we'll get into that very shortly.
Asa, what about yourself?
Yeah, I've been in the industry for about 10 years as well myself, both on the content side, on the dev side. The dev side is where I've been mainly lately, but you might have seen me on some content. I've been primarily with Gamerheads podcast lately, jumping on some of their stuff, but I've been on IGN, Kind of Funny, GameSpot, a few others, and then, like I said, working on the dev side, so mainly have done like consultation, so indigenous representation, making sure that everything looks good in games. And then I'm also a game developer, like making my own game. So I'm all over the place. And I've got a new project coming up soon that these fine gents know, but no one else can know yet until I get the green light to tell people.
Exciting stuff. And Michael, what about yourself?
I've actually been in, I'm an old head, I guess I'm the unk here, like 15 years. I started at Industry Gamers, then moved to GamesIndustry.biz, then US Gamer, then Fanbyte. I haven't had to do any freelance, all of those were just straight jobs. And then when it looked like everything was a little bit shaky there in media, I was like, all right, it's time to go. And jumped over to Digital Extremes and marketing, where I tell you about all of the amazing things in the excellent free-to-play game Warframe.
And soon to be Soulframe and other various titles.
Yes, we are working on Soulframe. I do not have to market Soulframe, but we are spinning it up quickly.
You love to hear it. Well, gents, thank you so much for joining me. This lays up nicely our next section, which is what the fuck is going on here? What is happening? What is Tokusatsu? So
how do you say it, Tom? How do you say this word that we're
right? Yeah. Well, we will get into the word Tokusatsu and its origins in a moment, but essentially the reason this podcast exists is because in one form or another we have all been interested and plugged into the world of Tokusatsu for years of our lives at this point. In fact, Eric, I'm sure we all have similar stories, but Eric and I became friends kind of because of all of this, because we met on Ranger Board in the mid 2000s.
Wow.
Yeah, which is a Power Rangers forum that I'm sure all of us have a username at.
Yep.
I actually do not.
Wow.
I was always a Ranger
Michael,
Board worker.
On the show. We're gonna have to part ways, unfortunately. No, I'm just.
We will have talks, I'm sure, eventually about Super Sentai and Power Rangers. We'll have those.
Were you on other places? Henshin Justice, Japan Hero, now
Henshin Justice, yes.
Yeah. I was also there too.
Oh, so you're a purist then? That's maybe what it
is. I'm more, like I said, we'll get into it eventually. I'm more of a purist. I did love Power Rangers.
I love that.
As a kid.
It's great to have you on as a purist because I feel like Asa, Eric, and I, it's tainted for us, because we came at it from the Power Rangers angle. And again, a great segue into what Tokusatsu is. So we all kind of, or at least Eric, myself, and Asa, and I'm assuming Asa happened as a child, enjoyed this TV show called Power Rangers. And at least for me, it was one of my favorite things as a kid. And I eventually, I was born in the 90s, so I was born in the era of early internet, right? So as I'm getting into my, even my teen years and stuff like that, and these sites are appearing. Eventually, I found my way to something called Ranger Board, which is a Power Rangers forum where I also met Eric. And it was at that time that I was also discovering Tokusatsu because, as Mike brought up and mentioned, there's this thing called Super Sentai, which is a Japanese TV show that Power Rangers is not only based upon, but is a literal, an adaptation is is not strong enough of a word. It literally lifts scenes from that show and just redubs them and intercut, live action stuff that they shot in America with the live action stuff that they shot in Japan. And so Sentai, which is, I would say, arguably, and we'll get into the semantics of what a Tokusatsu is, because technically Godzilla is Tokusatsu, and that's going to be a whole argument for a later date. But I would say when I think of Tokusatsu, like Super Sentai, a show that's been on the air now for 50 years, that's another reason why we're kind of doing the show, we just did the 50th anniversary of Kamen Rider, another Tokusatsu show. Super Sentai celebrating its 50th anniversary as well.
Ultraman celebrating its 60th, I think, this year.
Oh, wow. Wow. Holy moly. It's a very rich and very historied form of entertainment. But the reason we're doing Tokusatsu now is because it felt like to me for a long time, and I think that it's very clear that this is the trajectory we're heading in based on everything that's kind of happening right now, is that the kids yearn for Tokusatsu. Particularly in the West, right? And this is a very much, as you can tell, all American living English-speaking users. Western audiences, I think, are very much primed to enjoy Tokusatsu because obviously superhero shows dominate pop culture, movies and TV shows. Anime is more popular than ever. We have a high school down the street from us, and all they're interested in is their sneakers and like their anime merch. So, and Tokusatsu is almost a combination of these two things, right? And
there's also like an added benefit, especially now in the streaming era, where like we would get shows like back in the day, TV shows every season, like every year we would get a new season of a show. But now you're getting what, like 2-3 years between seasons of shows. Whereas all of the major Toku stuff, you will get a new series every year by hook or by crook.
Yeah.
So there's always something.
Literally no gap, right? Like they end one season 1 week, and then the next season starts
the next show.
Next week, and it never stops.
To add to Tom's point, we are definitely more primed and ready for Tokusatsu more than ever. The last decade and a half of like Marvel Cinematic Universe productions, and also the rise and fall and rise again of DC stuff, the same conversations fans are having about those shows and movies are exactly the same conversations that like Tokusatsu fans have been having about their shows for decades now. The storytelling conventions and tropes and even filmmaking techniques are all very much lifted by or inspired by or taking their cues from Tokusatsu. You can watch something like Avengers Endgame and be like, oh, that's Super Sentai X Kamen Rider Rider War or something like that. It's the fact that they take place in like desolate quarries. But like it's just so fascinating to me that like I hear the way non-superhero, non-Tokusatsu audiences talk about the superhero movies, and they'll say things like, you know, this doesn't make sense, or this and that, and they'll start talking, and I'm like, wait a second, that's. To me, that's the telltale sign that like, oh, you haven't watched like Power Rangers back when you were a kid, because just the way Power Rangers tells its stories or Super Sentai tells its stories, the MCU and the DCU kind of imitate that. Not imitate intentionally, if anything, but what I'm getting at is that there's a lot of echoes and similarities, even if it's unintentional. I will put it out there. I mean, this is probably getting too far ahead, but I really do think the Arrowverse is probably the greatest American version of a Tokusatsu franchise.
Yeah,
we had yet seen.
Oh yeah,
we'll get into that in just a little bit. But I just wanted to emphasize Tom's point that the superhero pop culture dominance we've seen here in Hollywood for about 20, almost 30 years now, since Blade became a box office hit. And even before then, a lot of that feels so similar to what you see in Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, Ultraman. So I really do think audiences who are fatigued by Marvel and DC and whatever other superheroes they're watching, they'll actually find a lot to love with Tokusatsu.
Yeah, and let's step back a bit, because we're obviously talking about Tokusatsu a lot. No, it's totally fine. It's I think people understand what it is based on everything that we've said, but let's go into the very nitty-gritty of what Tokusatsu is. So Tokusatsu is Japanese in origin. It is a combination of the words tokushu and satsue, which means special filming. And the idea is that pretty much anything with an emphasis on special effects, particularly practical, although in the modern era with just the rise of CG, like, you know, there are plenty of like that. I think there's an Ultraman movie that was made with very few special practical effects, but of course it's still Tokusatsu. So it is a very broad term, but there are very telltale signs. Some of the key things that absolutely solidify something as Tokusatsu is, one, practical effects, right? Practical suits, whether that be someone dressed up as Godzilla, or whether that be people dressed up in colorful spandex, and suitmation, I believe, is the term that people have coined for it. It's people dressed up in practical rubber spandex or whatever. The use of miniatures is another element, right? Like, so when you shoot, you know, those old Godzilla movies, it was a guy in a suit and they built like a miniature city for him to stomp around. And a lot of Tokusatsu still utilize practical miniatures today. Pyrotechnics, the explosions, we've all seen that clip on, you know, that same building in Power Rangers get exploded over and over again. That they like shot 3 buildings that they 3 miniature buildings they exploded and just use those on repeat. And then optical composition, so compositing to make it seem as if like someone is giant or someone, things of this nature. There are tropes within Tokusatsu. One of the biggest ones being henshin, which means to transform or metamorphosis. It's a word that if you watch Kamen Rider, you'll hear all the time because they literally say it right before they're about to henshin. So that's a huge part. That can be a huge part of Tokusatsu, but again, not necessarily every Tokusatsu show will have people transforming into something. Big battles, this is where I think Godzilla obviously very much cements itself as Tokusatsu, and obviously Godzilla was kind of the beginning of all of this, so it wasn't as honed in on what Tokusatsu was, but obviously big giant battles. Again, though, things like Kamen Rider, they don't have that. So it doesn't necessarily mean everything is going to have that. But if you see something with two people in rubber suits fighting in a miniature city, that's a Tokusatsu, baby. And then teamwork as well being kind of a big part of that, even when you have something like Kamen Rider, which is a single protagonist versus Super Sentai, which is a 5-6 heroes at once. Obviously, they have teams, they have support units, they have all kinds of characters. It's really an ensemble. Godzilla, another one, right? Like you've got Godzilla, and then you've got all the human characters that form an ensemble. It's never like Godzilla and Joe. It's never just like a small a group of people.
If I may add one more thing, Tom.
Yeah, go ahead.
Typically, when we talk about Tokusatsu, we're talking about science fiction and superheroes. A lot of these stories, because of the practical effects work and everything that Tom just eloquated, you're talking about impossible stories of impossible heroism. I don't believe, I might be wrong, but I don't believe Ozu made a Tokusatsu film. You're not going to see a lot of grounded dramas in Tokusatsu. You're not going to see a lot of romantic comedies in Tokusatsu. I would like to see one, but by and large, when we talk about this genre, this form of filmmaking, it's always centered around sci-fi, superheroes, a little bit of horror. Again, jumping a little far ahead, Ultra Q was like a Twilight Zone type show, and that was more rooted in horror than it was monster action. So whenever we talk about Tokusatsu, we're talking about the stuff that also belongs that shares the same heritage with things like Star Trek and Doctor Who and things that we would recognize in the West as science fiction and superheroes.
Yeah, I think melodrama is also a term that Western audiences might be familiar with, that very much is at the crux. Because as you said, it does touch on these things. Like romance is a huge part of Tokusatsu in my opinion. It isn't the crux of it, but right. These stories, they tell stories of romances. Some of my favorite, like Kamen Rider Kiva from 2008, tells about a love story across time, but it's always tinged with the impossible, melodramatic, over the top. And the shows and the movies, they all play with that to various degrees, but it's present in kind of every project. So in the 50s and 60s, you had Godzilla and Ultraman, right? Ultraman just celebrating its 20th anniversary. Those are kind of the beginning steps of Tokusatsu. And then in the 70s, you have the introduction of Kamen Rider and Super Sentai, the two biggest continuously ongoing Tokusatsu programming. There are a million other Tokusatsu properties that eventually we will get to, but I would say Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, Ultraman to an extent. Those are kind of the core three. Although, like I said, there are spin-offs. There are even Korean adaptations that also refilm stuff and recast character. We're going to dive into this world, and that's why it's a podcast, right? We're going to have numerous episodes. We'll do a whole episode on the Arrowverse, Eric. I swear to God, we will do that.
I will lose it.
I'm down. Yeah, Arrowverse I've watched. I started with Metal Heroes. Actually, my very first show was Uchukeiji Shider. Actually, way back in the day when I lived in Japan. So. there's so much, and I fan subbed too. So like Grand Caesar and Kamen Rider shows. So there's so much out there. It's wild.
Well, let's talk about our fandoms, right? So obviously, I think it's very clear, Eric and Asa, you probably discovered Tokusatsu through your love of Power Rangers, but as Mike mentioned, Power Rangers, fuck that shit. That shit's for babies. I'm going right to the source.
Wow.
So, so Mike, how did you find yourself getting into Tokusatsu?
So I actually, I'm a military brat. So I lived in Japan when I was a kid. And I think it was like late 84, early 85. There was a show on called Uchukeiji Shider, which was the third space cop show in the Metal Heroes series. And I used to watch that all the time. I had a figure. I had an old Chogokin figure, like it's just metal, that only articulation were its arms that could move like this. And I used to love it, even though I did not understand what was going on because I couldn't speak Japanese when I was a child. So that was probably my first major show. So like we'll eventually get there, but when Metal Heroes was sort of subsumed into Kamen Rider, I wasn't like deeply hurt. I was like, okay, that's fine. At least what started me still continues on. And then much later, yes, Power Rangers. I still love Power Rangers, guys. I'm not like an entire
I'm messing with you. Look, we all love Power Rangers to an extent, all right? And in fact, here's a teaser for next week's episode. The next episode we do is going to be all about the state of Power Rangers. I think it's good for us to kind of get it out of the way. We will talk about the more familiar, that is the most familiar. And it's funny you bring up Metal Heroes. So Metal Heroes also kind of like a subgenre of Tokusatsu. The ones Americans in particular might be most familiar with being Big Bad Beetleborgs. Being
VR Troopers, yep.
VR Troopers also, yes. Both shows that, again, took the power. And they were also under Saban, right? Saban was just trying to, and again, that'll be a part of the whole Power Rangers conversation and that guy. But basically, once they made Power Rangers and that was a big success, they tried to take a bunch of other Tokusatsu and replicate that success. We had Masked Rider, an adaptation of Kamen Rider Black RX. We had Big Bad Beetleborgs, a adaptation of Kabuto Fighter. Is that what it was called?
Yes, B-Fighter
Kabuto. B-Fighter Kabuto.
B-Fighter Kabuto, and then B-Fighter Kabuto J.
The original was B-Fighter, and then the metal. What was Metallic was B-Fighter Kabuto.
Beetleborgs Metallics. Gotcha. Okay, gotcha. And then VR Troopers was an adaptation of. Oh my god, you had Super Samurai Showdown. What was that?
Super Samurai. So VR Troopers was a mix of like two different shows. It was I always forget the second one, but the first one was Metalder. Metalder was the guy who had the red side and the blue side, which was an homage to Kikaider. But Metalder came out in like 93, 94 or something like that, and then VR Troopers came out like a year later. But they mashed up that show with another one whose name I'm forgetting, but it's part of the Metal Hero families.
It's actually two other. It's Shider is actually one of them, and then Spielbahn.
Spielbahn, that's the one I was thinking of. Thank you. Yes, and then that was VR Troopers. That was the first time that they tried to replicate the Power Rangers formula, and I think it was just a lot of work combining like three different shows into one thing.
What's the samurai show I'm remembering?
Gridman.
Superhuman Samurai. Cyber Squad.
Amazing. And that's based on what, Eric?
Gridman.
Gridman.
Which was basically an Ultraman for the first wave of like the internet age that came out like 96. They were trying to basically create a new Ultraman for for the 90s basically, and so they set the whole thing in the world of computers and computing, and it's just so funny because like Superhuman Samurai had like the most star power of all the shows in that era. You had Tim Curry as the main villain. And you had
Oh
one
my
of
God.
Matthew Lawrence was
Matthew
the
Lawrence, one of the
protagonist.
Lawrence brothers, as like the main protagonist. Yeah, yeah.
Holy cow.
For the '90s, that was like major star power for one
Yeah,
show.
we're
Yeah.
unlocking memories. You know, it was really funny when I started this. I was like, how much juice can we get out of this? How many episodes of this fucking podcast can we do? And now that we're talking, I'm like, this could go on forever.
Unexpectedly, Gridman is popular again because it has its own anime that is has
Two
its
anime
own,
series, yeah.
two anime, and apparently I haven't watched it personally, but apparently it does reference Superhuman Samurai Cyber
Wow.
Squad. The
Whoa,
a little bit,
really?
yeah,
Just a little bit.
yeah. So there is an audience out there wondering where this is all coming from.
Asa, what about yourself? How did you find your way into all of these ridiculous bits of programming?
I was a Power Rangers kid, like
Sure.
obviously very much so. I'm a huge Ranger head. It didn't stop at Mighty Morphin for me.
Nope.
It continued on through the Haim Saban, through the Disney era, through the Nickelodeon era, back to Neo Saban, all that. And now learning more about Tokusatsu myself, I was a huge Godzilla and Ultraman kid. I loved it so much. Watched it with my old buddies Chris and Todd when we were like younglings. Because I was born in the late 80s, 90s kid growing up, so that was just all of my content. So we're talking Big Bad Beetleborgs. We failed to mention Mystic Knights of Tir na nog.
Yo, dude.
Shout
out to the Mystic Knights, man. That show ruled.
It did. And you know what? Mystic Knights helped fund my wedding. I'm just throwing it out there because I had the complete collection of all of the figures.
Oh, wow.
And I sold them to help pay for my wedding. So
oh, damn.
That's how intertwined I am. And also I have to talk about the Spider-Man movie that I used to rent from my local library, which was like a hotbed of Tokusatsu and anime, like just jump-started so much for me growing up. But I watched that Spider-Man movie in Japanese all the time. It was the coolest thing for me. So when people were talking about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man being the first Spider-Man movie, I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about. Have you not seen? But yeah, so I all that to say, I have been completely obsessed with all of the American adaptations for a long time. It was Masked Rider when I was watching that I had then learned about Kamen Rider, and then started watching Kamen Rider because that same local library brand, shout out to that Newark, Ohio library, had some Kamen Rider. That's where I then learned more about Super Sentai, started watching more Super Sentai as well. And then I don't know if it counts, but Guyver was another one that I was 100%. really into.
The live action movie, yep.
Yeah, loved Guyver. And yeah, I just never really stopped. My kids now are, specifically my son, is like getting into Power Rangers. He jumped in with Dino Fury. Which is like the latest. I know we're going to get into the Power Rangers episode.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to see, like, it might be a 3, 4, 5 parter. Let's be honest. But yeah, now I'm coming at it from the parent angle, seeing my kids putting on their masks, putting on their morphers, running around, saying link to the morphing grid, and just like having that like elation that I did as a kid when I, would just like transform or it's morphin' time, and just like it never ceased to spark my imagination, even as an adult.
It's funny you bring up so people have probably seen it before, but the Japanese Spider-Man movie, and there was a show as well, right? Like it wasn't just it was a thing for a while. They even gave him a giant robot, right? They had to have that giant battle, so he gets his own Megazord. And what's interesting about that is actually, and again, we'll get into it when we talk about Power Rangers, but the whole reason that show exists is because back in the day, Stan Lee was trying to figure out a way to adapt Super Sentai in particular to Western audiences before Power Rangers was even a thing. And Marvel made a deal with Toei, the kind of production company behind all of these shows, that they would, hey, we'll license Spider-Man to you in return for us to be able to do stuff with your characters. And Toei took the ball and ran with Spider-Man, and the Bioman adaptation, the American on the flip, Stan Lee never quite got anything off the ground there. It's a fascinating story, and again, we'll jump into detail with it. But yeah, it is. You want to talk about like, you know, the connectivity between like Western superheroes and Tokusatsu. Like it's right there. Like there is that direct link, and both Marvel and what would ultimately be Power Rangers kind of learned from each other because of that, and it's fascinating. And we'll do a deep dive on that eventually.
Oh yeah, because they did get one thing, and that is Battle Fever J, which was the third Super Sentai, which was the Marvel. It was the international team and all that stuff working together with Toei and Marvel, and it is not like Marvel branded, but they did have input into it. There's a little bit of Captain America in there.
America Chavez from Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. She's a descendant of Miss America from Battle Fever J, like directly,
Really?
like creatively. Creatively, yeah. She's a. It's long and complicated, but basically she descends from like that lineage of that particular character. But yeah, that always struck me when I was watching Doctor Strange 2 in theaters. I was like, wait a second, that's kind of technically we're watching a Super Sentai character, but
wow.
Yeah.
I mean, look.
I'm going to rewatch it.
The signs are there for those with eyes, or whatever that phrase is. That's incredible. We're gonna. I mean, yeah. There's a whole episode there, right? All these like little freaky deaky bits of connectivity. Eric, what about you? I mean, obviously, like I said, Eric and we've been lifelong friends, but for a long time, our friendship was only internet based, and it was we co-hosted a podcast back in the day, in the early days of podcasting. Eric hosted Rider Kick Radio that I was a part of. I don't know if you can find episodes of that anymore, but we did that. I was on.
We were teenagers.
I co-hosted Ranger Cast for like the last few years of that show, which was a big Power Rangers podcast at the time, and it was a half a lifetime ago now, 17. So, like we met there, but tell me about your history with it all.
Sure. Well, it begins being a 90s baby and just being born at the right time, right place. Power Rangers was the biggest thing. I had an older sister who was the target demographic to be tuned in every. People say Saturday mornings, but actually it was on weekday afternoons, and that's when she was watching. And then just me being a baby in vicinity, I'd be there in front of the TV watching too, and it snowballed from there. I just kept up with the show even as my sister grew up and fell out of it. And then eventually I'm 10 years old. I'm on the internet, what I shouldn't be, but I'm just looking up Power Ranger stuff, and then that's how I discover Super Sentai and Kamen Rider, just by being in that world and immersed in it. In a pre-social media era of the internet, you're just, GeoCities and things like that, and you're finding fan sites, and you're just going after from one rabbit hole to the other. Mm-hmm. That's how I became immersed in Super Sentai and Tokusatsu in general. And then I just kept up as the internet evolved. Obviously, with the rise of things like YouTube and streaming video, and even if it was technically pirated, I would find ways to, watch this. I hesitate to say content, excuse me, but you try to find ways to watch the show because fan subs would go online, and I just cultivated my fandom from there. I just grew up along with it as did the internet grew up, and now it's more accessible than ever. So that's what blows my mind. You don't have to go very far to watch all of this. In a way, you don't have to go very far to watch all of this if you wanted to. So it's very exciting to be a Tokusatsu fan now. But yeah, long story short, I was a 90s baby. Grew up watching the TV show along with it, and then never stopped.
It's interesting you bring up like finding all of these like websites people put together. Like I'm pretty sure, like, because it was the early days of like I just remember like the Power Rangers database being a website. I forget what the URL was, but it
It was like
basically
Power Ranger Central.
yeah, Power Rangers Central, right? And it just took it was an early form of something like a wiki or something like that. That just like you had it by season, and they broke down here are the ranges, here are the, and I would for hours just look at the images and like learn everything about, because I was a sporadic Power Rangers fan in the sense that like definitely through like and basically through In Space had seen all of it. And then I remember after that, I think, and I was still living in the UK at the time, I think like whatever production deal, like distribution deal happened, it just became harder to keep up with the show. And like I remember only really being able to watch episodes by buying like the VHS tapes, which also were not like the complete season. It was like, here are a hand select full of episodes that don't actually go together, you know, or we'll take specific arcs like Lights of Orion cemented in my brain with a season, an arc in Lost Galaxy, because they had the Lights of Orion VHS. What happened before Lights of Orion? What happens after Lights of Orion? Very little knowledge. So I pieced together kind of, I filled in the blanks of like Lost Galaxy. Turns out years later, I was like, wait a second. They like scrap the whole thing. They find the Lost Galaxy, but then it's not what they think. Like, you know, and it's like this like Battlestar Galactica situation, like crazy stuff. So I would fill my gaps in there. And what was really cool was, again, in the UK, we were really behind then. Now we've kind of caught up and everything kind of like airs at once globally. But back in the day, we were a year behind. So if the season, like when I moved to America, it was in 2005. You guys had moved on to Power Rangers SPD.
SPD.
We just started streaming Dino Thunder, or you know, airing Dino Thunder when I left. So I like missed all of Dino Thunder until coming back to it later because I time jumped a year. But what was great was that Super Sentai, at least at that time, it gets messy in the 2010s, but they were also a year ahead of America. So I was like able to travel 2 years into the future and see like, oh my God, like not only do I know about the next season of the show, but I know about the next season of the show. Like this is crazy stuff. And then learning about everything about those kinds of stories that really sparked my interest, because it was also at a time where I was still an unabashed Power Rangers fan, but I also knew that it was made for babies, you know, like it was made for children, and I was becoming a teenager. And so the idea that there was essentially Power Rangers, but aimed at older audiences slightly, right? Like it's still a kid's show, but it doesn't, you know, infantilize children the same way that America does, right? Like it doesn't shy away. Some of those seasons can be very dark. Some of them have very elevated humor that isn't just like simple, like very simple jokes. And so I latched on to Tokusatsu because I just saw it as more age appropriate for where I was. And really my Power Rangers fandom during those years kind of got replaced a little bit, and I was more aware of the shows and things happening in the world of Super Sentai. You know, Bokenja was the first season of the show that I watched, and that's a fucking amazing season of Super Sentai. Do never go and watch Operation Overdrive, the season of Power Rangers that is based off of it, because it's garbage. And I knew that as a 15-year-old boy.
I keep this right here near my desk. If you can't see it, this is a Ranger key from of Boken Red. I keep it on my desk because it's just a nice little trinket.
And you have the Boken Red jacket. Boken Red is such a good season, and aesthetically, like and again, looking a whole episode there.
Like I was talking about the season thing, the beauty of the meta franchise for all of these is that, like Power Rangers, Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, if a thing isn't working for you, you just have to wait until the next year. So like there have been Kamen Rider seasons where I've been like, 10 episodes and this is not working for me. and then I just dip out until the next year when something new will come up.
Mm-hmm.
So like Operation Overdrive might not have been good, but then you get a new series right after. Well, until now.
Yes, right.
You can't.
And we will, and it isn't, like I said, people might think I'm being hyperbolic, where it's like one season ends, the next begins. I'm not joking. Literally, it'll be the end of season whatever, and that's an important thing to keep in mind, is that all of these shows, every time they do a new season, it's a new story, new characters. It's almost like the previous season never even happened. I guess you think of it like they all exist in their own multiverse, except sometimes like they cross over, and you just got to throw canon out the window. That's the other beautiful thing, and we could do a whole episode on this. But like canon within Tokusatsu is so fast and loose that you just accept whatever it is. Whereas obviously we've aligned in Western audiences, right? The MCU, like we need everything to make sense and fit in, and they've stumbled across a way to kind of sidestep some of that with the invention of the multiverse, but also it has this inherent understanding that all of these things are still connected and they all make sense in some way. Tokusatsu does not give a shit about any of that, and it's for the better. But yes, it is literally going on year round, and as Mike says, it might not even be a case of maybe super. I'm more of a, at this point, I really like Kamen Rider, I think, more than Super Sentai, just because it tends to be a bit more adult, a little bit. But one season of Kamen Rider might not do it, but a season of Super Sentai might, and vice versa. It's such a rich, diverse kind of tapestry, and it's going on all the time. So if something's not hitting for you, you can always move on to the next thing. But that brings us beautifully to kind of the topic of today's episode, beyond just talking about Tokusatsu in general, and that is Kamen Rider Zeztz. This is the new season of the show. Kamen Rider kind of swapped seasons in September. It used to be in February/March along with Super Sentai, but then they did a special season that was super short, so it ended early, and now it's in September. September 7th, I believe, is when it's meant to air. Yes, September 7th in Japan. But what's cool about Zeztz is that it's going to be simulcast. And this was another kind of nail in the coffin for why I thought it would be good to do the show, is because now there is going to be a Tokusatsu show, an actual Japanese television show that is airing. We don't have all the details, but ostensibly will be airing at the same time in America as it will in Japan, which has never happened before. It'll either, in the past, you either have, back in the day, you were doing some not so legal ways to get these shows. You have more options now. You can buy Blu-rays, there are streaming services, but we've never had a simulcast. And so that is changing with Zeztz. And as we're going to jump in here, I think there's a lot of things that are built into the show that is designed to appeal to not only new audiences, but specifically Western audiences. And again, that was another like, oh my God, we got to make this podcast because the Power Rangers are in Fortnite, Zeztz is going to be simulcast, and everyone's fucking pretty much done with Marvel, so they need some new shit, and this is going to be the new shit.
Yeah, and we don't know where we'll be simulcasting. If it's just YouTube, they're technically drafting on Ultraman, which has done, I want to say, the past 3 shows.
Okay.
They just put them on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like with subs. And I think for like the past 2, they've also done their own dubs, like put the dubs on YouTube. Like it's very forward thinking, and everyone's been like, why isn't Super Sentai and Kamen Rider doing this? But my hope is, since they haven't announced, I feel like if it was just going to be YouTube, they would have said that. Maybe they got some Netflix deal in there. Maybe,
Amazon is my big bet because Amazon did all of those, did stuff with Kamen Rider for its 50th anniversary. So my bet is it's going to be Prime, but I don't know. We don't know, which is crazy because it's less than a month from now. Tubi or Tokusatsu, which, we're going to end the show talking about where you can find Tokusatsu outside of Japan. There's a whole kind of brand kind of built around Western Tokusatsu fans called Tokusatsu. They have a lot of options as well. So who knows where it's going to end up? We actually don't know. But this will be the podcast to find out when we know. So let's get into talking about Zeztz. Let's go over some top level stuff here. So it's Kamen Rider Zeztz. It's spelled Zezztz, but the middle Z is silent. So it is Zeztz. It is the 40th season of Kamen Rider. Now I did say, and this is a little lie, and I'm sorry, I'm going to own up to it. I did say that the show ends one week, there's a new season starting the next. Kamen Rider had a brief gap in like the 90s, ostensibly, where it wasn't airing new shows. They did a couple of movies, but they picked up in the early 2000s again. And ever since pretty much 2001, we've had that consistent concurrent season, as opposed to Super Sentai, which...
Just like Doctor Who.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It was a similar kind of time gap. Yeah. Also, you could make an argue a Tokusatsu.
100%.
No. So anyway, Kamen Rider just celebrated its 50th anniversary, but there's only been 40 seasons. And yeah, there was about a 10-year gap there in the middle. So it's the 40th overall season. It is the 7th of the Reiwa era. So basically in Japan, if you don't know, Japan still has an emperor. People, I think, outside of Japan don't know this, but they still have a monarchy. It's kind of like Britain, where it like doesn't fucking matter. No one gives a fuck. But there are still traditions and things that they base around. And one of them being their own calendar. And so every time there is a new emperor, a new era of Japan starts. So the Reiwa era is the current and 232nd era of the official calendar of Japan. It began on the 1st of May 2019, the day on which Emperor Akihito's eldest son, Naruhito, ascended the throne as the 126th Emperor of Japan. The day before, Emperor Akihito abdicated the Chrysanthemum throne, marking the end of the Heisei era, which was the one that preceded Reiwa. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Japan explained the meaning of Reiwa to be, quote, beautiful harmony. So Kamen Rider has existed across three eras of the Japanese Empire. There was the Showa era, which is the original Kamen Rider show, through Black RX, which was the show that Saban adapted into Masked Rider, and that's what Kamen means in Japanese means masked. And they, like I said, put a pause on. Then they picked up after the beginning of the Heisei era. We got Kamen Rider Kuga through Go, which was designed as kind of like an end to a bunch of storylines and like kind of that era of Kamen Rider. And then we had the Reiwa era that began in 2019 with 01, and that has continued through to the present where we have Zeztz. It's airing September 7th. Whether that is the date it comes to American audiences, again, we don't have full details on when and where it will show up, but supposedly it will air around that date as well in the West. And like I said, the US, Canada, and other various nations in Asia, South Korea, Thailand will also be getting simulcast streams as well. The kind of pitch of Zeztz is that he enters people's dreams to protect them from nightmares, and nightmares with a capital N. Those are the names of the monsters. Every season, the bad guys will have like a name qualifier given to them, and this season it is the Nightmares. The main character is portrayed by Ryutaro Imai, who plays Baku Yorozu, and he can lucid dream and is able to control dreams, and that is how he becomes the Kamen Rider. And he partners up with a secret organization known as Code, that helps him with, they give him all the tech. That's kind of like how Kamen Rider usually works. It's like one dude, and then there's like a secret organization that gives him all of his gadgets.
Yeah, and one of the things about Kamen Rider as a meta franchise is the general theme is the rider or riders are generally powered by the same source of all of the villains. And that was like one of the original like hooks. Like, it is not the powers that make you are, it is that sense of justice that makes you a hero. And the rider is the same as his villains, but he's very much out to protect the weak. And that was a lot of Shotari Ishinomori's like storytelling, like Cyborg 009, same deal. He likes that feel of everybody else with this power is probably evil, but this one guy or these few guys are using the same power for good.
And they take that into like, I like how the show plays with that, and I think in this one we'll see a very similar thing where it is. Sometimes it's hinted at that there's that connective tissue between the two, and then sometimes it's a very literal thing where it's like stolen bad guy tech that they've repurposed or what have you, or maybe even the Kamen Rider starts out evil, and then I think even the original Kamen Rider, that is how it began. Like, they were built by Shocker, which was the name of the evil organization, and then they turned good. And so the show plays with that. But yeah, you're right. There is that kind of connectivity that's always there, and like walking the line between using these powers for good, using them for evil, and all of the various shows play with that in some way.
And Power Rangers did that a little bit too, except kind of like the inverse, where like you had the good team, but then you would have the evil ranger.
Yes,
like
the evil Sixth Ranger.
Also powered by the morphin grid, but in a more nefarious way.
Yeah. And those were always my favorite Sixth Rangers.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite Sixth Rangers are always the ones that are evil.
Evil Rangers are the best Rangers.
Green, Dino Thunder White, Titanium Ranger from Lightspeed. Yeah, good stuff. Baku is Code Agent Number 7, which is a nod to 007. Again, a lot of much in the way that Tokusatsu has influenced Western media. Western media has, in return, influenced Tokusatsu.
And someone has pointed out on Reddit that he goes into dreams during the sleep, and he is an agent, so he is a sleeper
agent.
Sleeper agent.
I love that.
Past that fun, it does sound like a little bit of an Inception style season.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, which will be exciting to see how they play with that. We've seen so far.
This is going to be cool.
It's going to be cool, and that's and ultimately, I think the point I'm trying to make is that they are building this intentionally to appeal to new audiences, and they are like, what is the coolest thing we could do? A guy that fights nightmares in people's dreams. It's dope.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of side characters here. We won't jump into all of them, but like I said, there is a team of people around the Kamen Rider. There will be eventual new riders. You suspect that always changes from season to season. Sometimes it starts with one and we only get a couple. Sometimes we get a bunch. Sometimes it starts with a bunch. And sometimes they're enemies or frenemies, yeah. That's always the fun thing about Kamen Rider, is seeing the new suit designs. How is this new Kamen Rider going to fit into the dynamic? And that's all information we don't really have right now, but we will as the show develops. The head writer on this is Yuya Takahashi, who was a head writer for X-Aid, 01, and Gates. Have any of you guys seen any of those? I watched a bit of 01. I was kind of put off by the look of X-Aid, which is meant to be like the video game season, but I just didn't like how they did the design there. And then Gates is really good. So any thoughts on these seasons?
I've sampled bits of Zero One and Geats. Geats, I was interested because that's like another video game inspired season. Apparently, that one was very much inspired by the battle royale boom, if I have that correctly.
Yep.
So yeah, the premise sounds like a battle royale where a bunch of writers were fighting for supremacy. Fortnite and Apex Legends were supposedly the named references that they were trying to take after. So I watched a little bit of it for that reason. Didn't stick with it just because I got busy and had other obligations, but it was a fun season. Zero One I couldn't stick with. I love the design and aesthetics of Zero One, but I could not stick with it for whatever reason.
Such a that 01 like classic Hopper design. That's also something that is a kind of a trope of Kamen Rider. Is the design of the main rider is usually all insects. Kind of again they get fast and loose with that. But 01 had this one, and usually the main Kamen Rider is designed. If there is a design that's influenced by an insect, it's a grasshopper. And 01 really leaned into that as the first of the Reiwa era. Really classic looking design. Probably my favorite of the three here.
Yeah, and a number of these are like the first Kamen Rider, which, Rider 1, Ichigo, has a very distinct classic look. 01 and Zeztz are callbacks to that rider specifically. Zeztz very much so looks like the color scheme and the general design is a modern throwback to Ichigo, which they've done a number of times, but this is another one of those main riders. And again, you get the feeling that they were like, this is the one we're going to bring globally. So let's aim to hit that and show them what Kamen Rider really is. I'm looking forward to Yuya Takahashi. Is a solid writer who tends to have problems in his endings, and sometimes his main antagonists are a little shaky. So I have seen all of the series that were mentioned that he has done before.
Do you have a favorite of the three? If you had to pick?
Story-wise, probably X8. I think X8 ended the best of them. 01 and Geats had stronger starts, and I like more of the characters in Geats, but in terms of bringing everything together, X8 was probably the best of them.
Okay. What about you, Asa? Have you checked out any of these ones?
I have not checked them out, like sat and watched them, but I especially like to watch like clips on YouTube, especially on TikTok. And looking back at them, Geese is the one that the clips that have really resonated with me the most. So if I was going to jump into them, even though I haven't seen them, it would probably be that one.
Geats is the one clip that a lot of people outside of the Toku fandom I've seen is the one fight for Geats' final form, Geats 9, where he literally quiets his theme song in order to do.
Yes, it's so sick. It's so good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he goes shh in the middle of the fight, and his theme song just stops, and then he switches his weapon to its other form, and then continues on.
That got me.
It's dope. It is dope.
Have to give, and my hope, my intention is like before I die, I will have watched all of these shows. So we'll see. But that's awesome, and to hear also that it has that battle royale infusion that Eric was mentioning, like look, Power Rangers and Fortnite, baby. Like I'm pilled on Tokusatsu and Fortnite right now, so it's time. Another couple of things about Zeztz. So this is really cool. So the belt, the henshin, the way that the rider's henshin typically is through a belt, also known as a driver. That's what they refer to them in the show. Now the fucking sick ass design they went with this year, which is like, holy shit, you guys. I know that this was a cheap move, but it really worked on me, is you don't wear it like a belt. You wear it like a sash, and it's a crossbody accessory, and it's sick as fuck. And it's the first time a Kamen Rider does not have their driver going around their waist. How do we top level thoughts? How do we feel about the sash?
I have some hot takes on this, but I'll let you.
Okay. Let me get my excitement first, and then you hot take it.
And then you ruin it, Eric.
Yeah, you ruin it. Because don't talk to me about when he went to put it on his belt, and I was like, okay, yep, that's what I expected. And he goes, nope, and he pulls it up, and I was like, oh, okay. And he puts it on, and when he puts in his power orbs that he's got, and he's across the chest, I was hyped. I was
hot.
so hyped. I understand that it's breaking tradition, but in trying to, it almost feels like that, hey, we're going to appeal to new audiences. Let's just go full out. Do something completely different.
All right, now, Eric, you shit on everything Asa just said.
No. I do think it's also a really sick design, too. I think it's ingenious that it's basically like a traditional superhero insignia. Like, it's on the middle of his chest. That's his Superman S right there. It's in the middle. And the cross. It's great. It's a great design. It's just that the fact that this is supposed to be introducing new audiences to Kamen Rider, not for nothing, but like all the promos for the show so far has like him posing in front of like other locations around the world, meant to like kind of subtly communicate that we are broadcasting this to everywhere. That's, I just want to call that out as well, because it's like, oh, it's fascinating that he's doing these poses in front of like highways in the UK and things like that, because it's really meant to be a global series. It is fascinating. I don't know, it's not a bad thing, but it's fascinating that they are trying to change tradition already when you're introducing this to a new audience. Like it's like, imagine trying to introduce Spider-Man with his black suit. Like it's a little strange.
Wow.
It's a strange creative decision. I'm for it. I'm as a longtime fan, I think it's dope. But like, if I'm trying to introduce this to like my brother-in-law who's never watched,
or he shoots web out of his feet and he swings his feet.
It's kind of, imagine that. Like, imagine if like Spider-Man actually shoots web out of his mouth instead of his hands. It's like it's kind of a weird choice. Again, I'm sure most newcomers are like not going to care, because to them this is completely brand new no matter what. It's just, for me, I'm like, oh man, if you're going to introduce this to a new audience, like, why not stick to tradition just a little bit and then do something experimental afterwards? But I think it's a really cool design. I'm excited as a longtime fan. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering, like, oh well, if I'm going to introduce this to my coworkers, are they going to be like, whoa, what is this crossbody satch situation? I'm like, well, typically it's a belt, a normal belt. I don't know if I'm ready to have like those conversations with like normies. Whatever. I think it's cool.
Will it change if they end up explaining it in lore, like, hey, with this, and started off with a regular belt and it broke, now we need to
it's fine, so long as people are watching. Like, that's like you gotta get people through the door before you start explaining lore to them. So
and like Tom was saying earlier, like in terms of canon and stuff, I don't think they care, and I really don't think it matters. Like, you could tell that the driver itself could have actually gone
around his waist.
Around his waist if they wanted to. And I think most people won't care outside of the idea of understanding a henshin item.
Yes.
And in Kamen Rider, the henshin item is a thing that goes around in some sort of form.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how plugged into Twitter you guys are, but a while ago, not like a couple of months ago, someone went viral for saying that like superhero belts are functionally useless. I don't get them. And then that just activated a bunch of Kamen Rider fans to go hold on.
Yeah.
And this person who went viral was like, well, weird day to discover what Kamen Rider was. I just thought that was funny. I just wanted to.
I love that. Yeah. And that is the cool thing. And again, various seasons play off of, like, for example, one of my favorite seasons of Kamen Rider is Fies, right? And in that, because usually they just literally pull the belt out of the ass, right? They're just like, I had it behind my back the whole time. But in Fies, they were like, no, the driver lives in a briefcase. And if you don't have your briefcase on you, you are fucked. And so they do that various levels of functionality and the ways in which they do add-ons sometimes. Like sometimes you add something to the driver belt. I also like the look of this driver as well, because I do think that for a long, especially with things like X8 comes to mind, like they got so unwieldy, and I was like, I would never want that thing near my crotch when I'm trying to fight a monster, you know? Especially because so many of these characters end up being men as well, so they got a little, you know, they got some extra bits going on down there. But this one is just such a simple design, right? You also have those orbs that Asa was mentioning, they're called capsums, and basically he swaps out the orbs to change forms. Form changing a huge part of Kamen Rider. There's the default form, which is known as the Physicam. This is his like red form. It's the one that is in all the promotion. And then we also have 3 other forms that they're teasing. And usually that's what happens at the beginning of the season, is like very quickly you'll get like around 4 forms, and then they'll add more down the line. They get Ultimate Things, the 9 form for Geets that Mike mentioned there. The whole thing.
And these tend to be like, at the end of the day, this is an entertainment business. These tend to be aligned with toy catalog releases. So they do a whole bunch in the very beginning so that they have a bunch of toys to come out with at the very beginning of the show to sell alongside the show. And then other forms tend to be aligned with quarterly, you know, toy catalog releases. And that's 1000%.
How it is. Like, you know, when you were a kid and they would be like, you would be like, I don't want to buy Arctic Freeze Batman, I just want Batman. But in the world of Tokusatsu, they figured out a way to give them a new fucking costume every week. So
it's like, it's episode 20. It's time for our new Arctic Freeze Batman. Like, and they make sure to put him in the show.
Yeah, exactly. So we have the forms we know so far beyond Physicam. We have Technolum, which is his blue form. It's technology-based. Esperim is his support form. It's green. And Paradigm is his quote-unquote reality-altering form. So I don't know what that means. That's interesting. It's a purple flavor. And one of the things I think they intentionally did here as well is, you know, like I said, much in the same way that the drivers get all kinds of appendages and attachments to it. For a lot of the seasons, when they do a new form, it'll be a different design, or maybe they get an attachment or something like that. They've kept it very simple, it seems, at least with these forms for Zeztz, where it is just a color swap. It's like the same suit pretty much, but his weapon changes, right? So the Breakum Zeztz is the name of his weapon, and it goes from the sword to a gun in Technolum, to an axe in Esperim, and a scythe in Paradigm form. And so the weapon is meant to and the color change signifies the form change. And I really like that they kind of kept it simple. It reminds me a lot of Kamen Rider Kuga, which was the first Hesse season. And that was the same outfit, just red, blue, green, you know, yellow, I think is whatever the colors are. We'll have some footage to show all the different colors. So I like that personally, and I think that's going to make it a bit more digestible. You know, you put something like Kamen Rider X8, for example, in front of someone, there's going to be a lot there that people are like, wait, what is going on here? Any thoughts there regarding like the forms just kind of being a color?
I'm fine with it. It worked, as you said, in Kuga. Another great design. Wizard did the same thing, where the forms were slightly different gems, but mostly the same in different colors. And it's a good way to start. It's like a nice foundation. It'll be interesting to see where they go from here. Do they combine the colors? Do they do what Wizard and Kuga did, and the next like set of forms are just upgraded versions
sales,
of each of those colors. So it'll be interesting to see. The step up of forms is a big part of Kamen Rider, at least. They added that to Super Sentai and Power Rangers later, but usually they tend to only get one single step up. Kamen Rider is about that consistent power progression across the series, which means you'll always get a certain number of forms. And how they do that is always different. Sometimes it's less. Yeah, sometimes it's less satisfying. We're coming out of Kamen Rider Gav, which is currently airing and about to end, and I think the form progression in that was a bit off. But like I said, if a series doesn't work for you, if you have a problem with it, don't worry. Wait a year. There's a new series coming.
And if you're a new viewer, you've got 50
so
years
much
of shit to go back to, which we will. In fact, we can talk about right now. Or the last thing I want to say on Zeztz is obviously, I don't know if people got this. The name, the ZZZ, is for sleeping.
Sleep.
Which I didn't.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Good. Okay. Sorry, that just clicked with.
Yeah, if you look at the logo,
long time too.
Yeah, if you look at the logo, they do a very big part of making the Z's out of the katakana, so you can tell that it's supposed to be z.
So that's Kamen Rider Zeztz. I think that it seemingly, we're getting. We're getting a show that is not only a throwback to the Showa stuff, right? As you mentioned, the suit is very much based off of a modern take on the OG Kamen Rider V1 suit. We're getting some, more modern era Rider stuff as well. Thrown in there. I do think Kuga being an inspiration with the color swaps, but then also we're getting brand new shit as well with the sash, and so I think it's that thing, to your point, Eric, regarding the driver and everything. I think that they're trying to appeal. This is a show that is meant to have more global appeal, and I think that baking in, it seems to so far be doing a really good way of balancing between appealing to the older stuff, whether that be Showa, whether that be Heisei and Reiwa era stuff, and then also creating new things that longtime audiences can also get excited about. And how they balance all that and how that all works, I'm fascinated to find out.
I will also say that the crossbody is probably easier to fit on, say, folks like us, older dudes who might have a little weight on them compared to the belt. The belts, even with the extensions, can sometimes, if you got a little extra down here,
junk in the trunk, sure.
Yeah, the belts can sometimes fit not great. Whereas I think the crossbody will probably fit a lot better, in the same way that a lot of Super Sentai Kenshin items are wrist mounted or just items that you hold out, and anyone can play with those regardless of your body type.
Also feels like a nod to streetwear too, which is popular worldwide. So
and I think that I would be fascinated. Excuse me, I would be fascinated to have been a fly on the wall for all of the decision making that went into that. Because when you think about it, you're like, oh, they probably thought about this really hard. And all of the conversations we just had about appealing to new audiences, the fact that it is streetwear, how do we get something that fits more body types? I really wonder how much that probably did play a huge role in it's also a bit more gender neutral, right? And so and I mean, Kamen Rider's history with, Tokusatsu's Japanese entertainment history with featuring women and I would be interesting to say the least, right? And I would be fascinated to see how that changes going forward now that it is trying to be a more global, diverse, equitable, inclusive program. So let's say you want to go check out some Tokusatsu. And I think, honestly, if I was to say, I would say just let's all see how Zeztz does. Maybe this is the one that we can all jump into. And we will be doing kind of weekly recaps, not full episode reviews, but kind of just like check in. Did you see this week's episode? What did you think? We will be following the show as it goes and obviously having commentary about it as the show progresses. Week to week, though, the kind of main topic will be something different. Like I said, next week we will be talking about kind of the history and state of Power Rangers. I want to do an Arrowverse episode. I want to do a whole Beetleborgs episode at one point. I want to touch base all of these various bases and create a complete picture of what Tokusatsu is, so that this show can be a interesting repository for newcomers, but also people who are big fans. Maybe they learn some new information. I've learned so much already, and I consider myself a lifelong fan. So please join us on this journey. If you do want to watch some Tokusatsu before Zeztz kicks off, or you see Zeztz and you're hungry for more, how can you find it? Well, we're going to talk about all the legal ways, okay, to do it. There are ways that don't fall into that category that you're welcome to search on yourself. But for the sake of wanting to have advertising partners in the future, here are all the official ways to engage with Tokusatsu outside of Japan. So Crunchyroll actually streams new seasons of Ultraman. I don't know if this is an animated show or this is live action Ultraman.
No, so yeah, Crunchyroll has the newer Ultramans, and those seasons are also on YouTube.
Okay.
And sort of on the YouTube, they're on sort of a rolling basis before. I don't know if they decided just to keep those up now, but you can find the current season as it's airing now, Ultraman Omega. So you can just search it and it'll come up on the Japanese official Ultraman channel and on the US one.
Yeah, I think they also have like the first episode of every season of like Super Sentai and like they'll have like the first couple of episodes on the YouTube channels as well. So those are good resources to find. There are like actual fully subtitled episodes on the official YouTube channels, just not full seasons, right? Like they're not just dropping everything.
Yeah, the Kamen Rider and sides are slower to get on there, and Toei has an official Tokusatsu channel that has a bunch of the older stuff, like a couple episodes here and there that you can find just right there on YouTube.
Yeah. Shout Factory is one of the main players when it comes to not only streaming but physical media of Tokusatsu. You have older seasons of Super Sentai that you can buy on DVD or Blu-ray, from Jetman to Hurricanja. Jetman being the season that preceded Zyuranger, which is the original season of Sentai that MMPR adapted.
Correct me if I'm wrong, they actually went a little further back. They have 5 men from 1990.
Oh,
so they have,
okay.
They have 5 men, Jetman, and then Zyuranger up to Hurricaneger.
Gotcha, because they started with Zyuranger. That was the first one. They went forward, but Jetman has always been kind of a very popular season of the show. Yeah. It's pretty sick. So they kind of went back. So I guess they're kind of like they're starting from Zyuranger and then going in kind of opposite directions there.
Yeah. The Hasbro thing is complicating it. We haven't had a Super Sentai release from Shout in a minute. But hope fingers crossed that they'll figure out something.
That this show puts it back on the map and we get a deal. No. So there are a lot of seasons there you can access. They also have some classic Ultraman seasons. And these are all streamable as well. They actually have, I think I pay $3 to have it as a part of my Prime Video. So I can just, if I want at any point, I can just have that access. There are also free, they have a free streaming service where I think it's more like you just kind of get whatever's live at the time. You've delved into some of this, right, Eric?
Oh yeah. Because Shout Factory has its own streaming hub where you can stream basically not everything, but a lot of what they own the distribution rights to. They also have that syndicated, for lack of a better term, to things like Tubi. So Tubi is how I watched caught up with a lot of Super Sentai. And Tubi is very popular. I don't need to tell you guys that Tubi is a very popular streaming service. If you can put up with a couple ads here and there, you're good to go. But just to expand Tom's point, there is so much Tokusatsu media out there to enjoy right now. YouTube, if you have a YouTube Premium account, well, you don't need a YouTube Premium account. It's just easier to not deal with ads. But YouTube has streaming for free, and this is I tried to clock this right before this recording. They have Ultraman Tiga. They have the original Ultraman. Shout Factory has uploaded all of the original Kamen Rider with English subtitles. Kamen Rider Kuga, Kamen Rider Ryuki, and Kamen Rider Geats and 01.
You can watch all of the seasons on YouTube?
On Shout Factory's personal YouTube, not personal, excuse me, but on Shout Factory's official YouTube, they have uploaded all of that on their channel with English subtitles. So just turn on the CC button and you're good to go. You can watch all of them on whatever device you can watch YouTube, which is basically everything.
Shit,
and those are the same ones. Yeah, those are the same ones you can find on Tubi as well. Like it's Geek 01, Kuga, Ryuki, and the original, and then some movies here or there. Just
to add to it, personally, the ones that I would give newcomers are things like Shin Ultraman and Shin Kamen Rider, which you can find on different platforms. Shin Ultraman also streaming on YouTube, believe it or not. Shin Kamen Rider is on Amazon, which, as to Tom's point earlier, I think Amazon might be an official, a de facto hub for Kamen Rider in the West here. You can also watch on Netflix. You can watch the Ultraman reboot/sequel anime, which is 24 episodes long. It's based on a manga that came out 2018. It acts as a sequel to the original Ultraman, but it's accessible to anyone who's never watched a thing. And it's by Netflix, so you can stream that on Netflix. You also have Ultraman Rising, which was a American-produced Ultraman movie. Great movie. Great movie. It looks beautiful. It's like Spider-Verse, but it's very welcoming. You don't have to know a thing about Ultraman to enjoy it. I know a lot of my movie friends, they don't know Ultraman, and they were raving about the movie. So imagine me sitting there being like, "Yep."
That was. I mean, I was thinking about doing this podcast even back then, and that was also a thing of shit. Is it time? Because I had normies. I went over to my partner's cousin's place, and the kids are watching Ultraman Rising. I was like, Ultraman in an upstate New York suburb? What is going on?
Yep. And like you mentioned Tubi before, Ultraman is generally released in the US and maybe some other Western regions through a company called Mill Creek. You can find all those on DVD and Blu-ray. Mill Creek also puts all of their Ultraman stuff on Tubi. And so YouTube. All of their... Oh, do they do on YouTube as well?
It's how I'm currently watching Ultraman Tiga. And it's.
Yep. So you can find all the stuff there, or you can buy it. I bought most of them because they go real cheap during the holidays.
Yeah. I also hesitate to mention this one, but if you're looking for something really dark and really something with real blood on its fingertips or whatever metaphor you want to use, there's a franchise called Garo, Garo.
Yeah, dude, Garo rips, man.
That is also streaming almost in its entirety on YouTube. I forget who's syndicating it, but it is available to watch in its entirety with English subtitles on YouTube. It's only 20-something odd episodes long, the original series, but that franchise has expanded to many anime movies and spin-offs, which are all on Crunchyroll for the most part. So,
and I will say that Garo is created by Keita Amamiya, who is a character designer, director, old Toku head. He's horny. So,
it is a horny show, which was perfect for me when I discovered it at like 18. I was it was violent and it was fucking horny.
Yeah, so mentioned to like people who like, what is the show? Basically imagine Batman meets Elden Ring. That's Garo. Like think of it that way. It's Batman meets Elden Ring.
But it will usually end up with some naked boobs somewhere in there. So that's just the warning. Like Garo is an adult show. Darker subject matter, tends to be some slight gore, body horror, and usually at some point
a bit of bush.
He wants to throw in some boobs because that's the way that man rolls.
The last one I'll also throw out there is Kamen Rider Black Sun, which is a reboot of a very popular Kamen Rider series. I introduced that one to a lot of my cinephile friends because it stars, I'm forgetting his name, but the lead of Drive My Car, which was up for the Oscars a couple of years back. He was also in,
that was like an official kind of co-production between Toei and Amazon. Like correct, it was made between like Toei went big on Kamen Rider's 50th anniversary, so that's when we got Shin Kamen Rider, and then we also got this Black Sun season, came out a couple of years ago. And yeah, it very much in the vein of Garo. Like that is the adults, like we're doing drugs, there's some tits, and it's fucking violent and nasty. And I think it also is like one of those things where it's like, because there's always this implied body horror particularly with Kamen Rider, because it is meant to be like insects, and there's always experimentation going on, and they push that to like the most like nth degree in Black Sun. So if you want like, adult feels the wrong word because it's not serious. Like again, it's still caked in melodrama, but it is like the gritty show. Asa, you were gonna bring something up?
Yeah, I was just gonna say another free resource is Roku. Roku, I feel like has a lot of the same feeds that Tubi has. So like, if you don't want to pay for another service and it has Kamen Rider, it has Ultraman, it has Super Sentai, it has Power Rangers in both the live version, but you can also go and search stuff. So that's another like great resource. Like if you have a Roku TV, it's literally like built in to your TV to watch this stuff.
That's awesome. Like I said, Amazon has some seasons on there. You can get some of these subscription services that give you access through Amazon, and I wouldn't be surprised if Prime is where Zeztz ends up, but I would say out of all of the Western streaming services, the ones that are going to have the most by default is, funnily enough, Prime Video. And then there's this other brand called Discotheque Media, and they started putting out Blu-rays of some classic stuff. So they've got Space Sheriff Gavin, which is a Metal Heroes, like one of the OG Metal Heroes. Correct me if I'm wrong there. They have some Blu-rays there. And they also have released a bunch of the older seasons of the show. They just actually announced it at Otakon, which is the big one of the big anime conventions here on the East Coast. They actually just announced a bunch of new releases, including Kamen Rider Amazon, Kamen Rider Stronger, and Kamen Rider... there's another one in there somewhere as well. So that's another resource. If you're more of a physical media person, there are plenty between Shout Factory and Discotheque, and I'm sure some others. There are ways to officially buy Blu-rays. So whether you want to stream for free, whether you want to get a streaming service, or whether you want to buy physical media, comparative to how difficult even 10 years ago accessing some of this stuff was, there is a wealth of content out there for you to dive into. But I personally, I recommend waiting for the launch of Zeztz. But if you do want to jump in, those are kind of like all the resources that are available. And like I said, there are some unofficial ways to get some of this content as well that are just persistent You know, once the torrent cat is out of the bag, there's no putting it back in. You should have been selling DVDs 20 years ago, but people needed to get that fixed, baby. And again, we don't condone any of that, and we've given no official ways to understand how to do any of that. That's all on your own accord. Well, gents, I think we can wrap it up there. I know that was a lot for people to absorb, but this show will hopefully be able to kind of break everything down. We're going to do deep dives on all of these, talking about from metal heroes. We'll do a Godzilla thing, of course, which is so funny because Godzilla is so popular and it is a tokusatsu. But any other kind of like tokusatsu one-on-one things you guys have?
I would love for us if we each gave one recommendation for newcomers. Just one show, or even just one movie, or complete absolute newcomers. I think that'd be a lot of fun. You guys would want to that.
Do you have anyone have?
I'll let Tom go first. I'll look at Tom go first. I'm thinking.
Okay, you think? Yeah. I mean, I think my recommendation would be Kamen Rider Zeztz. I think it is the one of the better written seasons. I think the designs of it all are fantastic, and also in a weird way, you know, it's like 2003, so some of the kind of aesthetics of that show have come around to feeling like really modern again, as we embrace kind of that turn of the century aesthetic in general. Like the technology, the way everything works, it's very mechanical, and I think that there is a desire to return to that aesthetic in a way. So I think it's actually quite a good time to jump in. And also to Mike's point of how the monsters and the bad guys and how they get their powers is entwined with how the riders get their powers. That show, I think, has my favorite examples of that, and it plays with the idea of, all right, so if by default the Kamen Riders are using this power for good and the monsters are using this power for evil, what kind of happens when that kind of like over the course of the show, things kind of change, and like some of the heroes become the villains and some of the villains become the heroes. It's a very good season of the show, and it's, I think, got some of the best acting as well, which can be dicey and kind of be a little bit of a maybe a hindrance for some people. And I think from an accessibility standpoint, I also think it has one of the best first episodes of any tokusatsu I've ever seen. So it kind of gets you from the jump. Eric, do you have one?
Yeah. So I changed my answer actually midway. I was going to say Shin Kamen Rider. It's one movie. You could sit down and you could sit anyone and have them watch that and sample it, and that's a really good introduction to just this entire world. But honestly, I'm going to change my answer. It's the original Guyver from 1994.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Because I think the practical effects of that movie are so impressive for what limitations they were working with.
Mm-hmm.
It's shockingly really funny. It's like a lot of people look down on the comedy of that, but I think that's a gateway to get people interested in the movie. And also, not for nothing, it's got Mark Hamill. It's got he's not the protagonist, but like people who know Star Wars will be like, wait, is that Mark Hamill in this weird thing? And you can be like, yes, exactly. It's totally so weird. It flip flops between comedy and like 90s monster horror. But the effects work is so impressive, and the martial arts choreography is also very good. Again, it's a testament to the craftsmanship of tokusatsu, which includes limitations, and how they solve the limitations is really the appeal of the craft. And I just think it's also just a weird, fun midnight movie that like anyone could watch and be like, oh, so this is what the vibe is, and you could be like, yes, this is what all of them feel like. So
I love that recommendation. I agree. I think it's a better rec over because we saw Shin Kamen Rider in theaters.
Yeah.
There's a lot about Shin Kamen Rider that I feel like could put people off, so I think it appeals more to people that have seen some things, and in a way, I think Guyver also feels a little bit more like I don't know, you see elements of that in Shin Kamen Rider as well. So I like Guyver as a rec. Asa, yourself.
Yeah, I'm gonna go the Super Sentai route, and I'm not gonna because it's so hot right now. I want to get people away from MMPR, and
Sure.
I think when you look at all of the seasons of Power Rangers and Super Sentai, I feel like there's only one that was an amazing season of Power Rangers and an amazing season of Super Sentai, and that was Time Force or Mirai Sentai Time Ranger. Both of those, their stories are very similar, but they take very different directions in places. Sentai is a lot more serious, a lot more gritty. Yes, and the Quantum Ranger is like my favorite Ranger of all time. But the storytelling, because I get like people not wanting to dive into Power Rangers because they think it's just a kids show. But like if you've listened to this entire podcast, hopefully we've given you a different spin on those opinions. And I feel like that is just like a great way if you're new to Power Rangers, and you just like, because I feel like MMPR is kind of a trap. If you go back and watch it now, it's not that great. It drags on in so many spots. This gives you that Power Rangers Sentai feel. And so you'll watch it and go, okay, this is clearly Power Rangers, but it's something that is like completely separate in its tone. You know, you're away from the dinosaurs. You've got time travel. If you're looking at Time Ranger, you've got these drug lords and crime syndicates. If you look at Time Force, then you're looking at conversations of like racism and xenophobia, and there are also like great relationships that happen. And then, of course, like I already said, time travel. I feel like they handle it really well. And if you end up really rocking with it, I've got recommendations on how they continue that story forward because it was so good.
I love that recommendation. I also think Time Ranger / Time Force is just a very clean design for everything, whether it's the suits or the Megazords or the weapons. So I think aesthetically, it also is like very accessible. And yeah, when I think about Time Force, like the antagonists in that show, like are kind of revolutionary for like a kids TV show.
It changed everything. Rancic was like a completely breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Last throwing support behind the Time Force. Again, I'm trying to appeal to normies right now. You've got Rancic played by Vernon Wells, who was the bad guy in Commando, excuse me.
Yeah.
You've got a Schwarzenegger villain as a Power Rangers villain as well. Perfect. And Aaron Cahill, who's built up a career as a Hallmark staple. So, like, if you like Hallmark, if you like Hallmark Christmas movies and all that stuff, she's a Power Ranger there. So,
and yes, they have a Red Ranger, but she is the leader.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah. And then Mike, what about you? Any thoughts on Time Ranger 2? I felt like you had something to say there.
He noted that MMPR is a trap, and that is I am not a Power Rangers purist or Super Sentai purist against Power Rangers. I just feel on the US side, we are sometimes a bit too caught up in MMPR again and again and again and again and again. And I would rather, like, Power Rangers Super Sentai as a meta franchise, you can do anything because you have a foundation. I would much rather, like they did with Cosmic Fury, just do your own thing. Like, like, go ahead, just make up new suits, new whatever, shoot it all in the US. That's fine. My problem is always going back to MMPR. And this is even said they just added the MMPR suits to Fortnite. I bought them immediately. But like, we're always like hashing out, like, say, a new Power Rangers reboot movie. It'll probably be MMPR. But you can do anything. It's like Star Trek. You can go anywhere.
Go anywhere.
I was going to mention, like, the way I just reconcile the overabundance of Mighty Morphin is that I just view it in the same way I view Batman 66 and Star Trek: The Original Series. It's like it's foundational for a lot of people, and it's the biggest reference point. So you can respect it in that regard. I get it. I'm also a little fatigued by it, but
Yeah.
I know that it's the gateway for everything else and to talking about everything else. So I know why a lot of Toku fans are fatigued by it. I get it. But like, it's got a place. It has. You have to. Place.
It does. It really does. And the Boom comics do a fantastic job at expanding that even further, and like really putting more depth into those characters. And yeah, I love MMPR, like, but I just, when you're coming in like new fans, I don't want them to get stuck on this. Because there's so much more. I feel like people get into MMPR and they don't ever touch anything else.
Yeah.
And it's like, there is such a wealth out there.
We will talk about all that next week.
Yeah, sorry.
All good.
I will say I will not do one. I will do three.
Okay.
For Ultraman, you find it on YouTube. Ultraman Z is probably my option. It's like 25 episodes. You'll find the playlist on Tokusatsu. No, it's on the official Ultraman channel. Very good, very Ultraman as it is modern taking. Good characters, good monsters, good fights, a lot of fun. Power Rangers, I would agree with what was offered there. If you want to see what was sadly missed, go find Super Sentai. It's called, they have it under Super Sentai Die Ranger on YouTube. Go watch Die Ranger. It'll say full episodes. It's just one big video that is like a 12 hours long.
That's awesome.
But it's all the episodes back to back. And that is the second MMPR. They used the robots, but they didn't use the suits or fights. And Die Ranger was the martial arts themed season. So the fights were so good. And I'm so sad that they didn't just use
those costumes and everything.
The costumes and the fight footage as well.
Yeah.
They are, so the White Ranger is from that season.
Yes.
Like, pulled directly. Great suits.
Which
so
is why aesthetically he has nothing in common with the rest of the suits. You're like, what's that on his belt? He doesn't, what is going on here? Yeah.
And then the Kamen Rider would have been Kamen Rider Double. That's the
double fucks, dude. Yeah.
If I'm going to say this is Kamen Rider, here's a nice foundation like Ultraman Z, it would be Kamen Rider Double, but you can't get that legally right now. So I'll say Gates is still quite good. You can watch Geats. It's on Tokusatsu's channel. I'm looking at it
right now. I'm gonna be watching this one. I didn't know it was they had the whole season here. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love Double. Double is interesting too because it's I think that was also meant to be like a new starting point for people because it came right after Decade. That was what, at the top of the show or the top of when we were talking about Zeztz, I mentioned the fact that they got out of sync with their release order, right? It used to be that new seasons of Kamen Rider and Sentai would release at the same time, and then they did this like special 10-year anniversary of the Heisei era with Kamen Rider Decade, and it ended early. They only did 30 episodes, which blew my mind. Like, I just was like, what? Like the fact that now it's off sync, and ever since, like, Kamen Rider is launched in September, and Double was the season that followed, and I think very much was meant to be a good jumping on point. But the interesting thing is like it's a fusion, right? It's the two halves of one Kamen Rider.
It's two dudes that turn into a single rider.
It's pretty sick.
But as a series, it is this is Kamen Rider straight through, great characters, story is great all the way through. It is one of those this is what it is.
Yeah.
But it is not legally available, so I will go with Geats as the legally available option.
Sure. And again, we'll probably do a whole episode on Double, but like what I loved about Double as well was how it was so good, and clearly like so many seasons after that took some new stuff that Double introduced and like ran with it, and like you can see Double's influence for like a long time following that show. But like you said, not legal, so don't, we'll have to call the cops on you if we catch you watching Kamen Rider Double. Gents, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much for joining me on this inaugural episode of Tokusatsu Now. We are hoping to do these weekly. We'll see how that works out with everyone's schedule. Like I said, I think we've got to get the Power Rangers elephant in the room out of the way. We've got to have that discussion and be able to move on, because there's a lot there. So that will be the next thing we talk about. And then in September, obviously, we'll have some more information on where Zeztz is playing, and we'll start introducing, kind of talking about that show and following that through as it releases week to week. But pretty much every episode aside from that will be about a new topic, and it should naturally kind of build off from the previous week. And it's very clear that we've got a lot to say about the current state of Power Rangers. So that will be for next time. Eric, Asa, Mike, thank you so much for joining me. Very much appreciated. And we will catch you on the next one.